You know how they say that therapy is supposed to help? That it's the last resort when you're desperate to save something that's slipping through your fingers? That's what I thought I was doing, saving my marriage. My wife was simply cheating on me with him all the time. Let me set the scene for you. My wife, Emma, and I had been married for 8 years. And like any couple, we had our ups and downs. But the past year? Man, it was rough. She was distant, cold, always finding a reason to pick a fight. I chalked it up to stress, her work, her family, life in general. But eventually, it got to the point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. I wasn't perfect either. I'll admit that. I can be stubborn, quick to temper, and I wasn't always the most emotionally available guy. But I loved her. I thought love was supposed to be enough. When Emma suggested couples therapy, I hesitated. Therapy wasn't exactly in my wheelhouse. I grew up in a family where you just dealt with your problems, you know? You didn't need someone else to mediate. But Emma pushed for it and I figured, what the hell? If it makes her happy, I'll give it a shot. Maybe it'd help us communicate better. Maybe it'd remind her of why we worked in the first place. The first session was awkward. We sat on this worn-out couch in a dimly lit office that smelled faintly of lavender. Dr. Fletcher was intense. Mid-40s, slicked back hair, a calm, soothing voice that made you feel like you were under a spell. He'd sit there with his notebook, nodding like he had all the answers. Emma seemed comfortable right away. Too comfortable, honestly. She opened up more in the first hour than she had with me in months. I felt like the odd man out, watching her connect with him in a way that I hadn't seen in ages. But I told myself it was fine. It's his job to make her feel comfortable, right? He's just helping us dig through the things we've buried over the years. That's what therapy's for. So, we kept going. Week after week, I'd pour out my frustrations, talk about how I felt like I was walking on eggshells all the time. Emma would share her side too, though a lot of it felt like jabs directed squarely at me. You don't listen, Derek. You're always angry. I don't feel seen. I sat there taking it, trying to be open-minded, trying to be better. But then something started to feel off. Dr. Fletcher seemed to take her side. Every time. No matter what I said, he twisted around, making it seem like I was the problem. I wasn't just not listening. I was emotionally neglectful. I wasn't just angry. I was creating a hostile environment. I felt like I was getting tag-teamed. But Emma looked so happy after our sessions, like she was finally getting what she needed. So I sucked it up and told myself to keep going. For her. But then she started staying late after our sessions. At first, it was just a few minutes. I need to schedule next week's appointment, she'd say. Or, I just want to follow up on something. I didn't think much of it. I'd wait in the car, scrolling through my phone, giving her space. I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? She was my wife, my partner, my person. Until the day I walked back in. It was a Wednesday evening. We just finished our session, and Emma told me to wait in the car while she talked to Dr. Fletcher. It'll only be 5 minutes, she said. But something about the way she said it didn't sit right with me. Her tone was too casual, like she was trying too hard to sound normal. So I waited. And waited. 10 minutes went by. 15. 20. My patience wore thin, and I decided to head back inside. I wish I hadn't. When I opened the door to the office, the first thing I noticed was how quiet it was. The waiting room was empty, the receptionist's desk abandoned. I walked down the hall toward Dr. Fletcher's office, my heart pounding in my chest. And then I heard it, soft laughter, followed by hushed voices. My stomach dropped. The door to his office was cracked open, just enough for me to see. And there they were. Emma, perched on his desk, leaning in close. His hand was on her thigh, and she was smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. The kind of smile that used to be mine. I froze. My mind was screaming at me to barge in, to demand answers, to do something. but I couldn't move. I just stood there, watching as the woman I'd spent nearly a decade building a life with flirted with the very man who was supposed to be saving our marriage. And then she kissed him. It wasn't just a peck, either. It was passionate, intense, like they'd been holding back for weeks. My blood boiled. I wanted to rip that smug bastard off his chair and make him pay. I wanted to yell, scream, do anything to stop what I was seeing. But instead, I pulled out my phone and snapped a picture. Evidence. Proof. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I thought no one would believe me otherwise. Maybe I just needed something to make it real. When I finally found my voice, it came out in a low, trembling growl. What is this? Emma and Dr. Fletcher sprang apart like teenagers caught by a parent. Her face turned pale, her eyes wide with shock. Derek, it's not what it looks like, she stammered. But it was exactly what it looked like. Emma's face turned white as a sheet, like she'd seen a ghost. She scrambled off Dr. Fletcher's desk, tugging at her blouse like it was going to erase what I'd just witnessed. Fletcher? That smug bastard didn't even flinch. He just leaned back in his chair, trying to play it cool like he hadn't just been caught with his hand in the proverbial cookie jar. Derek, you're overreacting, she started, her voice trembling as she stepped toward me. It's not what you think. Not what I think. I had just watched her lock lips with the guy who was supposed to be fixing our marriage. What the hell else could it possibly be? Oh, so I didn't just watch you sucking face with our therapist? I shot back, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Enlighten me, Emma. What am I missing here? She opened her mouth to say something, but nothing came out. Fletcher decided to jump in, like he was the mediator in this absolute train wreck. Derek, let's take a moment to breathe, he said, his voice calm and measured, like he hadn't just been caught red-handed. This isn't the place for a confrontation. I couldn't believe it. This donkey really thought he could talk his way out of this? The place for a confrontation? I repeated, laughing bitterly. You're screwing my wife in your office, and you're telling me this isn't the place? What should I do? Book an appointment. He didn't answer, and I could see a flicker of panic in his eyes now. Good. He deserved to sweat. Emma, on the other hand, was still trying to salvage whatever narrative she thought might save her. It wasn't planned, Derek, she pleaded. It just happened. It just happened? I shouted, my voice echoing in the empty hallway. Emma, we've been married for 8 years. You don't just accidentally end up kissing another man, especially the guy we're paying to help us. My fists clenched at my sides, and I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. And then it hit me. This wasn't the first time. There was no way this was a one-off thing. The late nights, rescheduling appointments, the way Fletcher always seemed to side with her in our sessions, the sudden push for therapy in the first place. It all clicked. This had been going on for a while. I felt like an idiot for not seeing it sooner. How long? I asked, my voice cold now, deadly calm. Emma flinched like I'd slapped her. Derek, please. How long? I repeated, taking a step closer. She backed up until her back was against the desk. She looked at me, then at Fletcher, like she was hoping he'd jump in and save her. When he didn't, she finally broke. A few months, she whispered, barely audible. My stomach turned. A few months? I said, laughing bitterly. You've been screwing this guy while I've been sitting in these sessions, pouring my heart out, trying to fix things with you? You've been lying to my face this whole time? It wasn't like that, she cried, tears streaming down her face now. It wasn't just physical. I felt alone, Derek. You shut me out. I didn't know how to reach you. Oh, so this is my fault now? I snapped. You're the victim here because what? I didn't hold your hand enough? Give me a break, Emma. Fletcher, ever the opportunist, decided to try and play peacemaker again. Derek, I understand that you're hurt, But if we could all just... Shut up. I cut him off, pointing a finger in his face. You don't get to play therapist anymore. You're a predator, taking advantage of vulnerable people. Do you even have a shred of integrity? Or did you lose that the second she walked into your office? For the first time, Fletcher looked genuinely uncomfortable. His calm facade was cracking, and I could see him weighing his options. But I wasn't done yet. I pulled out my phone, holding it up so they could both see the picture I'd taken of their little makeout session. You think I'm just going to let this slide? That I'm going to walk away quietly while you two play house? Guess again. Emma's face crumpled, and she started sobbing. Please, Derek, she begged, reaching for me. Don't do this. Don't ruin everything. Ruin everything? I said, stepping back from her like she was toxic. You already did. You ruined it the second you decided he was worth more than us. I turned to leave, but then I stopped. I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. I turned back to Fletcher, my voice low and steady now. You should start looking for a new job, document, because I'm going to make sure every single one of your clients knows exactly what kind of man you are. And Emma? I looked at her, tears still streaming down her face. We're done. I hope he was worth it. And then I walked out, slamming the door behind me. But the anger didn't stop there. It simmered under the surface, boiling over as I drove home, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. If they thought I was just going to roll over and let them get away with this, they had another thing coming. When I got home, the first thing I did was grab the wedding photo off the mantel and hurl it across the room. The glass shattered against the wall, pieces scattering across the floor like the remains of my marriage. The sound was loud, but not loud enough to drown out the storm in my chest. 8 years, gone in one moment. I stood there staring at the broken frame, my breath coming in short, ragged bursts. But standing still wasn't going to help. I needed action. I went straight to the kitchen, yanked a beer out of the fridge, and downed half of it in one go. My hands were shaking, not from sadness, but from pure, unfiltered rage. I wasn't going to sit in that house and wallow. No. If they wanted to destroy everything I'd built, I was going to make sure they didn't walk away unscathed. I grabbed my laptop and got to work. First stop, the clinic where Fletcher worked. I typed out an email so fast my fingers could barely keep up with my thoughts. Subject: formal complaint against Dr. Richard Fletcher. Dear Sir or Madam, I'm reporting a serious case of misconduct involving Dr. Fletcher. While attending couples therapy with my wife, Emma, I discovered he was engaged in an inappropriate sexual relationship with her, his patient. I have photographic evidence of their behavior during a session. This is a gross violation of ethics, and I expect immediate disciplinary action. If this is not handled appropriately, I will escalate to the state licensing board and take legal action. Sincerely, Derek. I hit send without hesitation, leaning back in my chair for the first time in what felt like hours. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. Fletcher's career was about to go up in flames, and I was going to enjoy every second of it. Next, I called my lawyer. No way was I giving Emma the chance to twist this around. By the time she got home that night, I already had divorce proceedings in motion. I wasn't waiting to hear more excuses or sob stories. The second she walked through the door, she froze. I was sitting on the couch calm, like I'd been waiting for her all night. I hope you enjoyed your time with Fletcher, I said coldly. Because it's over. Her face crumpled instantly. She tried to play the victim, her voice breaking as she sputtered, Derek, please, just let me explain. There's nothing to explain. I shot back, standing up. You betrayed me. You broke us. And now you're going to face the consequences. She tried to walk toward me, tears running down her face, but I didn't budge. I filed for divorce, I said bluntly, Watching the words hit her like a slap. You'll get the papers soon. Don't bother calling or texting me. You don't get to cry to me about the mess you made. Derek, she pleaded, her voice trembling. It wasn't just physical. I was lonely. You shut me out. I didn't know what else to do. Lonely? I laughed bitterly. So your solution was to hook up with the guy we were paying to help us? Do you have any idea how pathetic that sounds? If you were lonely, you could have talked to me, Emma. But instead, you chose him. Her sobs got louder, and she started saying something about how she still loved me, how she didn't want to lose me. I didn't care anymore. She'd already lost me the moment she crossed that line. You don't get to love me after this, I said, my voice cold and final. You loved yourself more. And now you can have him. But don't expect me to stick around and watch. I walked out without another word, slamming the door behind me. I drove straight to my buddy's place. He opened the door, took one look at me, and handed me a beer without saying a word. That's the thing about true friends. They know when to ask questions and when to just shut up and let you breathe. The next morning, I woke up to a flurry of messages from Emma. I didn't read a single one. Instead, I turned my attention to the fallout I'd started. The clinic had already responded to my email, saying Fletcher had been placed on leave pending an investigation. That was code for, we're scrambling to clean this up before it gets out. Good. Let them squirm. But I wasn't done yet. Fletcher thought he could bury this? Not a chance. I drafted a post for social media, a public call-out that would make sure everyone in town knew exactly who he was. I attached the photo of him and Emma mid-kiss. Caption: This is Dr. Richard Fletcher, the therapist who was supposed to save my marriage. Instead, he decided to have an affair with my wife during our sessions. If you or anyone you know goes to him for help, think twice. He's not a professional. He's a predator. I hit post and sat back, waiting for the fallout to begin. Emma and Fletcher had destroyed everything I'd worked for. Now, it was their turn to watch their lives fall apart. And I wasn't going to stop until they felt every ounce of the betrayal they'd handed me. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Within hours of hitting post, my phone started blowing up. Texts, calls, notifications. It was like a wildfire. Friends, family, even people I barely knew, all chiming in. Some were offering support, others just shocked, and a few nosy ones fishing for more dirt. The post was spreading fast, and Fletcher's picture was plastered across every local group and feed. It didn't take long for the clinic to feel the heat. By midday, I got an email from their management, a pathetic apology laced with corporate damage control. We take these allegations seriously. Dr. Fletcher is no longer associated with our practice. That was their way of saying they'd canned him. Good. One down. But Emma? That was a whole other story. She called me nonstop after the post went live. I ignored every call, but the voicemails kept coming, each one more frantic than the last. Derek, please take it down. You're ruining everything. One of them cried. Another one was angrier. You're being vindictive. This isn't fair. Oh, fair? She wanted to talk about fairness now? The irony wasn't lost on me. By the time I got home that evening, I found Emma waiting outside. She looked a wreck, hair a mess, makeup smeared, and red eyes like she hadn't slept in days. Good. She deserved it. Derek, she started, her voice shaky as I stepped out of the car. We need to talk. There's nothing to talk about, I said, brushing past her. Please, she said, grabbing my arm. You're blowing this out of proportion. You don't understand. I whipped around, yanking my arm free. I don't understand? I barked. What part of this don't I understand, Emma? That you cheated on me? That you did it with the one person who was supposed to help us? Or that you lied to my face for months while I was trying to fix what you'd already decided wasn't worth saving? She flinched at my words, but I didn't let up. You ruined this, not me. You don't get to play the victim now. Her lip quivered, and for a moment, I thought she was going to keep arguing. But instead, she broke down, sobbing, right there in the driveway. I watched her crumble, and I felt nothing. No pity, no guilt, no desire to comfort her. Just a cold, empty void where love used to be. I'm sorry, she choked out between sobs. I don't know why I did it. I was so stupid, Derek. I don't want to lose you. I shook my head, my voice low and firm. You already did. I walked into the house and left her standing there in the cold. She didn't follow me this time. Maybe she finally realized there was nothing left to salvage. The next few days were a blur of paperwork, phone calls, and awkward conversations. Word had spread fast, and suddenly everyone had an opinion. Some people rallied behind me, telling me I'd done the right thing by exposing Fletcher and Emma. Others whispered about how messy it all was, like I cared what they thought. At least I could hold my head high knowing I didn't lie. I didn't cheat. I wasn't the one who tore everything apart. Then came the final blow. A week after the post, I got a call from a reporter. Fletcher's little scandal had gone beyond the local gossip mill. It was starting to make headlines. Apparently, my post had inspired other former patients to come forward. Women who'd felt uncomfortable during sessions, couples who'd noticed his inappropriate behavior, even a few employees from the clinic who hinted at shady things he'd gotten away with for years. Fletcher wasn't just losing his job, he was losing his entire career. And Emma? She was radioactive. Her friends started distancing themselves, whispers about her infidelity spreading like wildfire. The life she'd built, the reputation she'd cultivated, it was all crashing down around her. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Watching the truth come to light was enough. The divorce went as smoothly as these things can. She didn't fight me on much, probably because she knew she didn't have a leg to stand on. I got the house, the dog, and most importantly, my dignity. By the time the papers were signed, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. The last time I saw Emma was at the courthouse. She looked defeated, her once bright eyes hollow and tired. She tried to talk to me as we walked out, but I didn't stop. I just kept walking, letting the distance between us grow until she was nothing more than a memory. As for Fletcher, last I heard, he'd packed up and moved out of town. His name was Mud, his license under review, and his reputation shattered. The predator had finally been exposed, and he had no one to blame but himself. Now, it's just me and Scout. The house feels quieter these days, but it's a peaceful kind of quiet. I've started to pick up the pieces, rebuilding a life that isn't built on lies. It's not easy, and some days are harder than others, but at least now I know the truth. And the truth, as painful as it is a hell of a lot better than living a lie.